we recording? Edit that. Yeah. I'm going to call today's episode Beanie Men. Zimzama.
Yes. I was going to say, have you got an impression of Beanie Man? Is that too old school a reference nowadays?
For some people, but for the ones that know, if you know, you know.
Yeah. Do you have, this is a good question, do you have any old school analogies or references that you use when you're delivering sessions at work that you need to stop doing because they're too old now and everyone looks at you blank?
I can't think of them off the top of my head, but do you?
Yeah, there's one. So I often refer to RoboCop. When I'm talking about resilience and like people being like, and I'm talking about toughness and deflecting things off of you. Yeah. I go, that conjures up RoboCop.
And there's two versions of RoboCop as well, isn't it? So you're talking about the Verhoeven, Paul Weller.
Yeah,
RoboCop,
mate. Yeah. So you get some blank looks.
Yeah.
It was Mark after a That Day session that texted me. Literally, his feedback was, great session, mate, but you really need to drop the RoboCop reference.
Yeah, I can't think of anything like that, but probably.
You're quite down with the kids, though, isn't it? When you go to concerts and that, you still go to like really relevant ones.
What, like Kendrick Lamar?
Yeah, is he not new?
He's the only one.
Yeah, all right.
He's the only one. No, he's relevant.
Yeah.
Not like the Saw Doctors. I am going to see Bruce Springsteen in the summer, though.
Yeah, but he's still relevant, man, even though he's 94.
Yeah, he's good. I'm just a late entrant to the Bruce vibe, though.
I bet he's good live, mate. I'm not a fan as such, but I bet he's good.
I wasn't. Erin's always been a fan, and so I sort of got enrolled that way. But I remember back in 2008.
Are you going with Erin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go by myself.
Well, I don't know. I thought you might have. I know what you're like. She's got you into it, but now you're going with your mates.
I have no mates that like Bruce Springsteen, unfortunately. But no, summer 2008, there was 2 gigs in a row on a Friday night. He was at. We went to see him at Emirates, which was a wicked one, and then we went to see Foo Fighters at Wembley the next Friday.
I bet the Foo Fighters were banging, man.
So good, man.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
You're right. We both got beanies on. That was the whole Beanie Man reference.
Yeah, for the people, the most part listening online can't actually see that we both got beanies on. Yeah,
I noticed that you tuck your ears in, whereas I keep my ears out.
Yeah. You wouldn't get yours in.
Someone said I wore this on another podcast once, and someone said I look like Noddy.
Yeah. No, I agree. No,
what? I look like Noddy.
Yeah.
Oh,
you do look like no, man. You look cool. The problem is because I got so much hair. My hats slowly work their way off of my head.
I bet they get misshapen really easily.
Yeah, man, and they lose their strength in
elasticity.
Yeah.
Is that what you meant?
Yeah, this is exactly what I meant. Yeah, but so they start working their way off. I already feel a little bit too hot with it on.
Me too, man. I've got less hair though, so I've probably got a bit longer than you.
Mine might come off before the end of this.
All right.
Depends how heated this shit
Can you give us a big fanfare when it's about to come off?
Yeah. I'll let everyone know. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. So, how's your week going?
Well, in terms of the check-in, we're going to check in first, yeah? We're going to check in now.
I haven't asked you for you to check in, yeah? I just said, how's your...
Well, that is a fucking check-in, is it? How's my week been? It's Tuesday, so we're talking yesterday. How was yesterday? Is that what you're asking me?
Some people start their week on a Sunday, Josh.
Oh, that fucking annoys me. Have you... So
to get your goat?
Yeah. I'm starting here. Last year, we had a calendar. You know, do you have a calendar still on the wall in the kitchen?
Yeah.
With all the the family
Not in the
shit
kitchen.
on it?
The kids have got a couple. Yeah, no, we don't do that.
All right, well, we do.
That's why we're in a lot of trouble in our house. We need a calendar.
We got last year's one had Sunday on it at the beginning. So, you kept fucking up because you would count that as Monday. Yeah. Monday's the first day of the week, man.
Some people would disagree with you, Josh.
Who?
Let's find out.
Where does it come from? God rested on Sunday, didn't he? According to the Bible.
It's not just Christians that live in this world, is it?
Is that where it comes from, though?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
Can we find out, though, from our listeners?
So, to come back to your question.
Yeah.
Monday was all right, mate.
Okay,
I had a bit of a shit day, actually, to be honest with you.
All right.
Didn't get much done.
Okay.
How was your Monday?
Just phenomenal. Really good. just winning on all fronts. But that's because my week started on Sunday. So yeah, check in, mate. How are you doing?
How am I doing? It's weird now because we do the check-in all the time. If I'm not careful, I overthink it and I start trying to be a little bit like, I become inauthentic if I overthink anything too much.
Yeah.
Today I feel all right. Today I feel jovial. I love these days when I'm out and I'm doing this stuff, yeah, because I think it's one of the ways that makes my mind at its most quiet. When I'm out and I'm in my passion and I'm doing what I love and I'm doing this and I've got some other bits going on in Uncommon Man and all that later. But like on a day-to-day general perspective, I've been getting overwhelmed quicker than I normally do. And I think there's a few reasons for that. Like, one, I've got some stuff going on in terms of like family stuff. I've talked about this before. I've got like a blended family, some kids from my previous relationship that don't live with me, and then not a great relationship with their mum, which brings a lot of stress that it's very difficult to kind of channel that and get that out of you. So there's a lot of that stuff that's going on that I don't talk too publicly about, mainly for the kids' sake more than anything. And then also like I've been acting out a little bit. What I mean by that is like, rather than when I can feel that I'm getting overwhelmed a lot, going back and doing the things that I know that work. I've been doom scrolling a bit and like finding ways to escape rather than move through. And when I do that, that's when it builds up and it compounds. And then the next kind of anxiety episode tends to come around quicker than when I'm doing what I should.
Yeah. I think that will really relate to a lot of people, I think, just because... when the overwhelm often comes internally, but you don't really externalize, you don't talk about it a lot. And it comes in waves, doesn't it? So you it comes up and then it goes down, it comes up, it goes down. And I know because of what I'm about to sort of talk about myself, you go to those places where you can escape. So the doom scrolling definitely has sort of shown up a bit more for me. Also the feeling of helplessness.
Yeah.
You go, I don't know how to fix this, so I'm just going to go back to that place where I don't need to think about it. So I think a lot of people probably feel that, right? It's just that pure escapism, and some people, throw themselves into Netflix or social media or whatever.
Yeah.
I have a sort of a similar thing. I think something. I think I had a tricky start to the years I've talked about on here, but I've come through that, and I feel like a lot of resolution and kind of confidence in, what I'm doing from a professional perspective, what I'm doing certainly from a health perspective and how I'm looking after myself. But I think the one area that I'm feeling that I'm underperforming in is being present at home. I feel really like I almost feel like my tank's empty by the time I need to get there. And I don't really want to talk too much about that because, we've talked about that before, and I think people understand the concept of being present at home. But I was starting to be a bit like overwhelmed internally. I was building a narrative around failure, my own failings. And I just went, right, well, you got to do something about it. You can't just hope for a better day. You got to do something about it. And so the instant reaction might be, let me just delete all the social media off my phone. But actually that isn't it. You need to go back to the wiring. And actually, for me, I started to look into some of my own practices. So my word of the year, as a reminder, is lead. And for me, I've broken that into two parts. Self-leadership and leadership of others comes after that. You have to start with yourself. In every piece of personal development work, whatever impact you want to have on others, you have to start with yourself first, right? So for me, that is what I've been putting as a paramount. And so I realized that I needed to understand what my internal triggers were before my external actions will be pick up the phone, watch the Netflix, be grumpy at people or whatever. It all starts from somewhere internally. And I, a few years ago when I started to develop the product, the digital product, I read a book by a guy called Nir Eyal called Hooked, and it's all about creating habit-forming products. And it's a very well-recognized book, and it kind of has a model that helps you kind of design products to help people build habits. But it's also the same model that bad, nefarious companies use to get people to be addicted to their tech products, right? So I think he kind of had to balance that out, right? Because he knows that he's probably helped some of those companies. So he wrote this book called Indistractable. And it's really about how for you to kind of get traction in your life, you need to be indistractable. You need to understand what's going on here and not blame the technology or the social media or anything like that, but understand what's going on internally. Anyway, I started listening to that, and just immediately I've taken, steps, big steps around like how I'm going to start to kind of address things. So one of those things is I have a very complex and busy life. And so just by taking a different approach to how I target my day means that I've got more time left to kind of intentionally use later. Because the fallacy that we tell ourselves is, oh, we got no time. I ain't got any time or any energy. But through wasted energy, by not being efficient, by doing a to-do list versus something called time boxing, which I recommend people go and find out. You look like you were going to puke out there.
I just burped. I had to hold it in so it come out my eyes.
Where was I? We waste about 28 to 30% of our time, right?
Sorry,
I'm just going to giggle. On a day, across a week, but across a lifetime, that's a decade.
Yeah, that's
wasted
mental.
time.
Yeah.
But what can we do with a decade? And that was the thing that made me feel, oh, okay, I can do something. I've got to do something about it. And that's what I've been doing over the last sort of 5 days. And it's making a huge difference.
I do think, like when you can start to, I think we've talked about this before, but I do think that people discount in general, like you've just talked about feeling a bit overwhelmed, going through a tricky period. I've talked about, being a bit overwhelmed lately, going through what you might call a tricky period or whatever. Yeah. I think we sometimes discount that and think that we need to get rid of that, when actually I think in some ways that is us. It's almost like we go into a bit of hibernation, the body starts screaming at you, giving you louder signals, and then comes the action. And rather than thinking that horrible period needs to be something that we need to get rid of, right, and I need to make sure I don't go back there, it's almost like, actually, I think that's kind of like the way that life goes, up and down. You go through those tricky periods, and if you can start to listen to them as much as you can, be in them, and then as soon as you feel ready, start to go, right, what do I need to do now? How do I need to move through this? And that's where I always go. When I start feeling hopeless, in the end is what I start feeling, which is like I start feeling things like, I don't know if I'll get out of this one. This is crap. I don't know why I bother. It's all this is, it's all fake. It's all bullshit. I do all of that in my mind. If I can catch myself quick enough, then I can go, I know when I'm here and why this is.
Yeah.
And I need to look truth in the eye.
Yeah.
I need to speak to some people about that truth, share that truth, and then go back to doing the things that I know work, or address the issue that my body is telling me about.
Yeah. One of the things that comes up in this book is understanding the internal trigger before the external trigger happens, right? So we've talked about food addiction in the past, right? Like when we turn to food when we're feeling a particular way, but actually there's something that happens internally way before we pick up that chocolate bar or that tub of ice cream or whatever, right? And so it's hard. You don't recognize it at first, but just being more tuned in is like a really powerful way to kind of move forward. And rather than abstinence, right? So beat yourself up and you go, no, I'm not going to pick up my phone. I'm not going to look at social media. No, I'm not going to watch another episode of Netflix. He talks about, Nir Eyal talks about this thing called the 10-minute rule. He's like, yeah, you can have it, but in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then if you just wait 10 minutes, chances are you won't want it as much.
Yeah, I like that.
You won't feel as strong. So you're not saying no, because then when I say to you right now, don't think of a white polar bear in a forest.
Yeah.
What do you think of?
A white polar bear in a forest.
Yeah. So you run much faster to the thing that you're telling yourself not to do.
Yeah.
So actually, just say, yeah, I can have it, but I'm going to have it in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And it just makes such a difference.
Yeah, it's good, man. And like, on a slightly separate point as well, to bring together what we're kind of saying, I do think when you go to that internal thing and you listen to what's driving it, that's your only hope of finding the true solution. Because I think like in today's world where there's lots of like well-being stuff out there, sometimes you jump to a solution as well. So rather than listening to your body, you're doing 10 ice baths a day and going out barefooted with no shoes and socks on or whatever, right? But no amount of that is going to work if your problem is driven by the fact that you hate your job, right? No amount of ice baths are going to stop you hating your job. You need to deal with what your body's trying to tell you, right? And so when you get to the core and you get to that level of self-awareness, what's my body really trying to tell me, and how can I make at least even small, minute changes towards that? That's when you see real change. When my job was making me depressed, and I hated it. I was stuck in a dead end job and felt trapped, like I couldn't get out of it. I started taking some baby steps. So I started going, right, the reason it makes me so depressed is because I feel like there's no meaning. So I started volunteering because I knew I couldn't just leave my job. And then I volunteered with one charity and then another charity. And then I found the COA. And then that began to snowball. And it was listening to my body. What's the real problem here? Making small changes in my life that, have ultimately led me to where I am today. Whereas back in the past, I could have just been stuck there thinking, I'm stuck. I hate this. I'm depressed. I feel crap, right? And that's not to say that when you're stuck in them things, you're the one who can get out of it. You're the one. But it is about, there is something in this about saying, what's my body trying to tell me? How in tune can I be with myself to make the changes I need?
Yeah. One of the pillars of the coach training that I did is focus on the whole person, not the problem.
Yeah.
So as a coach, somebody might say, I'm having a really bad relationship with my manager. So you could just spend an hour just going, right, let's talk about how you can have a better relationship with your manager. But actually, through the power of coaching, you can actually get to something which is, I'm feeling unfulfilled in my job.
Yeah.
I'm unhappy. And that's what needs to get solved, not the relationship with the manager.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Brilliant. Good chat, mate.
Check in, mate.
Yeah. So this next section is called Things That Get Your Goat.
Things that get your goat.
So we all know that, well, I think despite our very approachable coaching, well-being demeanors, we both agree that we don't like people very much.
I don't human very well.
Yeah, you don't human very well. But I asked you to think about things that really get your goat.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to do. So you go first.
I'll go, right. So my first one is spiritual arrogance. So it kind of links a little bit to what we've just been talking about, but you see so many people online, right, who talk about like healing and doing the work on themselves, right? But what they've got this such like spiritual arrogance where they're just emotionally avoiding the fuck out of everything. And then they push it onto you. So like, if you're feeling down about something, they can't handle your feeling down. So they have to push something on you. Oh, you're feeling sad. Why don't you write down 3 things that you're grateful for? I'm like, well, because then I'll just fucking feel guilty about the fact that I feel sad. I'm not stupid. I know the good things I got in my life, but this is what I'm feeling right now. And maybe the two even coexist, yeah? Like, it also looks like, never allowing anybody to be angry. Oh, you're angry. Oh, okay. If you just let it go, work on letting it go. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. And these spiritual, arrogant people that I'm talking about, they take themselves so seriously as well. Everything's just love and, oh, you were abused and you're upset about it. So was I, but I just found love and forgiveness. And now I sit in the lotus position. Let me give you this as well. 96.2% of people that say that they meditate every day have fucking never meditated before in their life. Apart from...
Where'd you get that stat from?
Apart from sitting in the lotus position and filming themselves.
Does it get your goat?
I made that stat up.
Oh.
But I bet it's right.
Yeah.
I bet it's right. I bet it's fucking right.
Bet your house on it.
That's why you should always check stats.
Yeah.
You get people like me that just make my... But
Stato. Do you remember Stato?
No.
Okay. Now I'm really showing my age.
That's one of your references.
He was on Frank Skinner and David Baddiel's show.
Oh, I used to love that.
Stato was on it.
I don't.
Well, you obviously didn't love it that much. Oh, you were probably wasted.
I was just or a child. So
or a child.
Remember it properly.
You never paid attention to the nerds, just the alpha comedians.
Let me just caveat, by the way, what I say about spiritual arrogance. I do think in some ways it is a part of the healing journey. So like when I was about 2 years sober, I was really spiritually arrogant. Because arrogance in general, right, is normally...
No, you're just arrogant.
No, just arrogant.
You just dropped the spirit chili.
I think arrogance is not in most cases, right? Arrogance is born out of like...
adversity.
No, like a desire to hide from something.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm arrogant and I'm like, fuck your opinion, I know everything, yeah, all that. Then it normally means that I'm uncomfortable with your opinion. So when you get these spiritually arrogant people who are like, just work on forgiveness, let it go. What they actually are normally is uncomfortable with the fact that you're comfortable with your difficult emotions. And so they need to like push them down in you and push fixing on you and stuff like that. And I want to kind of just hold space for the fact that we probably all go through that phase at some point and can go back there at any time. Yeah. I can be quite spiritually arrogant.
I didn't want to say, Josh, to be honest. But, like whenever you're learning something new and it's having an impact on you, you kind of want to share it, don't you? You share it before you've done the work. So let me give an example. When I'm reading a really good book, I don't wait till I've got to the end of it. I've read about 2 chapters and go, oh, this is great. Like Indistractable, I haven't finished it.
I got distracted.
Good. Yeah, I got distracted. But so I get it. Like you just want to share it. It's just the people that can't continue to do the work.
It's that, and then when when it becomes a little bit sort of, I hate to use the word toxic, like when it becomes like a little bit like that, and you get these people that are like, oh, you struggle with boundaries? I did X, Y, and Z, and now I've got perfect boundaries, and nobody touches me and comes near me. And you see that stuff online all the time, and it can be quite shaming. Like you see it in like the sober community. You have people that like just love being sober and they really want to talk about it. That's one thing. And then you have people that I sometimes think, do you realize that you've quit alcohol and now you're like shaming anybody that drinks? And it gets a bit uncomfortable. I love the sober community. I'm talking just about like there's a minority of people, but the problem is in some ways is that it's in the healing space in general. It doesn't feel like it is a minority, man. It feels like it's a lot of stuff, a lot of people.
So can I go now?
No, I'm going for my number 2.
No, okay. Mine feel really trivial compared to yours.
No, my next 2 are now, man. That was my big one out the way.
Chuggers. Chuggers get my goat. Do you know what chuggers are?
No.
Charity muggers. You know the ones that like accost you on the street, right?
Yeah.
And like you see them, they're going to come for you. You're starting to work out what you're going to say just to slide past really quickly, and then I overthink it a little bit. And then I get my words out all wrong, and then it sounds like a lie, which it sometimes is, but I just need to get through it. What really gets me about them, right, is they don't really believe in the cause, but they project that they really believe in the cause, but they basically they're just doing a job while they're students, and they have to pick a new charity every day. So I sort of know that.
Do they?
Well, they basically they're just people that are like on a temp agency probably, and then they'll go and like.
Oh, what? So like they could be doing one charity one day and then another one the next?
Yeah.
I never knew that, man.
And I'm not going to, in today's day and age, I'm not going to write my email address and my bank details on a piece of paper. Like, I'm just not doing it. You know what I mean? So
I bet they get some people, innit?
They will.
Have you ever signed up to one?
Yeah.
What? Because you couldn't get out of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah.
Honestly.
No. Yeah.
I did one knocked on my door, mate. We were paying £2 a month for the air ambulance for ages.
It's a good cause, man.
Well, they're all good causes, aren't they? That's the thing.
Like, it's the ones on the street that that you like, that actually that they've got to do the job. I get it, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what charities need to do. That you need to kind of pierce the consciousness, otherwise people just won't bother. So I understand it. It's the ones also that when you walk past, they're a little bit snarky as well. You know what I mean? Like,
do you know what I do? Genuinely.
Oh, good. Let me know.
If I've got headphones on, as I get close, I start talking and point to my ear.
Oh, I do a bit.
Genuinely, I start going, all right, what? Sack them. Sack all 5 of them. We'll get someone new in. Sorry, I'm just. I do that.
Yeah. Genuinely. So I know they have to exist, but I
think that one's a bit harsh, mate. They're just trying to make a fucking living.
So are arrogant, well-being people. Go on.
Right, my number 2 is bandwagons. I've always hated any type of bandwagon that people get on, and I've always.
What about a band that needs a wagon?
What are you talking about? That's a fucking shit joke.
Yeah. Anyway,
if we had an editor, I'd get that cut out. No.
Can you cut that out?
Don't cut it out. Leave it in there. Any type of... I've always been a bit of a rebel, yeah? So I never... Like, I fucking hate when everybody starts doing stuff. And then you get the people that, like, inauthentically start jumping on the bandwagon as well. And, like, they're doing it just because it's a bandwagon.
Yeah.
So, like, on TikTok, the latest one is... There's a filter on there that makes you... It's called the teen filter. Have you seen it?
No.
Well, like, it's supposed to make you look like a teen, yeah? So you've got loads of, like...
That's a bit creepy.
You've got loads of, like, middle-aged people on there that are, like, I don't know, in their 40s or something, yeah? That are, like...
Like me.
Filming them... Like you, yeah. Filming themselves and then putting the filter on and then looking at the camera and, like, looking at them and then, like, crying and going, I miss you, buddy. We did our best. We made it. And I've done it, and I fucking...
So you're on the bandwagon.
No. I haven't posted about it, but I looked at this filter. I put it on. It looks nothing like me when I was a child. Not remotely. It just gets rid of all my, like, creases and spots in my face, and it looks nothing like I used to look when I was a kid. And so I just, like... And then... People are doing it with filters in general. Mm. So there's another one on there called Glam Filter.
I've seen that one, yeah.
Yeah. And then, like, people are, like, going, look... I look nothing like this, and then they turn it off, and they don't look anything like it, right? Yeah. And they're like, "This is ruining the kids." Yeah. But the truth is, it's the kids know. The kids know. It's only people in their 40s and 50s scaremongering about it. Like, the kids know everything is filtered. They know online everything is filtered.
Yeah.
So they don't have to worry about it.
Do you know another bandwagon that I'm seeing a lot?
What?
White trainers and white socks, and people pulling like sports white socks up the calf and tucking their thing.
No, they cut the bottom of the what, football you mean?
No, people just in the street.
What, tucking their socks into their trackies?
Yeah. It's a thing. Now that I've mentioned it.
Yeah, but that was in the 90s, bruv.
It's back, isn't it? I'll tell you what else was in the 90s.
What? Go on.
Vanilla Ice. Back. Fresh Prince. All my kids are getting into Fresh Prince.
Are they?
Yeah.
There was a little thing where all the young people were getting into Friends again, wasn't there?
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it was getting cancelled a little bit.
Right, my turn.
Sorry.
On the street theme, still. Obviously, I did chuggers. Do you know what really gets my goat is slow walkers. I'm really intolerant. I just can't.
And then you can't get round them, and you've got to walk behind them.
People that walk slow.
Oh, mate.
Escalators.
And they stay on the left on the escalator.
Oh man, hate them. Hate them people. But just slow walkers. Like, you know, I just need to get somewhere fast. Yeah. And it's slowing me down.
Yeah.
Just really get my goat.
Are you a proper missioner?
Yeah.
Like you mission everywhere that you go?
Yeah. You know how like people just kind of, it's like they're living life in the fast lane in their head. I'm one of them.
Oh.
I just don't need slow laners.
They're living life in the fast lane.
Like those travelator things that you get in airports.
Yeah,
I walk.
Oh mate,
I just walk. I can't be dealing with.
Like I'm already on the escalator.
No, I walk to the left of it.
Yeah, but if you was a real fast go-getter, you'd walk on the escalator for double pace.
You sort of, yeah, that's true. But then you've got people that are getting in your way that aren't walking the pace that you want to walk.
If someone stood in the way on an escalator now,
yeah,
you know you're supposed to stand to the right. If someone stood on the left and blocking the way, what do you do?
Can you move to the right, please?
Do you?
Yeah.
Do you? Excuse me, can you move to? Do you?
Yeah.
I don't know. I stand behind them and look at the other escalator going like rolling my eyes.
Passive aggressive. They don't know what's going on because they're visiting your country. It's just, yeah. Slow walkers in room 101.
Okay. Oh yeah, this is a bit like room 101, isn't it? So I've got another one. My last one is people that sit on the inside lane on a train. Or when they sit next to the window but put their bag on the chair next to them.
Oh.
Now, I'm fair game when it's early doors, yeah? So, like, if we're looking at the carriage and there's quite a few empty seats floating about, but people are going to have to start sitting next to you, I'm fair game for doing what you need to do, yeah? My favourite one, because I don't like to look like one of the pricks that's put their bag on there so you can't sit there, is I pull down the tray of the chair next to me on the aisle seat. Yeah. And then I pretend to be asleep with my legs really wide so I look uninviting to sit next to, right? No, yeah. So I'm fair game.
Yeah.
But once you got to the point where you know you've stopped at this train station, everyone's going to need a seat, yeah? And people still stay sat there and they wait and make somebody have to go, excuse me, can you move over so I can sit there?
Yeah.
Like, just give up the game now.
Yeah.
Give up the game and move over.
Yeah.
You know people are going to need to sit down.
I'm with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm
Thank
with
you.
you.
Thank you.
But I don't like what you're doing to try and make yourself look.
Well, do you know why I do it? Because I'm a chronic people pleaser that when somebody sits next to me, I make myself so small as I can. I don't want their arms to touch me. I won't use the armrest. You have it. I'll move right over and I'm achy and I'm in pain by the time I get to the train station because I've completely abandoned myself through fear that I might be making the person next to me uncomfortable. So that's why I work hard to try and get no one to sit next to me. And then you get some people like who sit next to you and you're like, there's fucking loads of seats up there where you don't have to sit next to anyone and you've come and sat next to me.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Oh my day. That's worse. That's worse than the aisle seat sitters. Thank you. Thanks, Az. Thanks for your time.
All right. Really gets my goat, this one. People.
Full stop.
Yeah, just people. AKA my kids. One of my kids specifically, but shall remain, who put back empty cartons and wrappers into the fridge. Oh, yes, you know.
Oh my God.
You know.
I hate this so bad, man. I hate this so bad.
Yeah.
Or cereal boxes, you know?
Cereal boxes.
You go and get them out and there's none in there. And you've done the shop.
Create the false illusion of false illusion. We're all sorted. We got stuff. We're good. Oh, I've just done a workout. That orange juice is going to quench my thirst. And then it's empty. And it's proper empty, but just a tiny little dribble. So there's defensibility in the argument that kid can say, oh no, well, there's some in there.
Oh my God. I need to show this little bit here to Leah. It makes me angry, but it makes her even more. But you know the worst thing about it is, I remember it used to make my stepdad really angry when I was a kid. And I remember being a kid and thinking, just chuck it in the bin, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
Why are you so angry about it? Yeah. Like, all right, it probably was me, but why are you so... I remember I used to think, why are you so angry?
I think that's happening in my household right now.
That was the best one, mate.
Yeah.
That was the best one.
All right, cool. That was fun. Josh, tomorrow, 8th of March. Why is it significant?
It is International Women's Day.
Correct. And do you know when it started?
Oh, what? When it became a day?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
In 1911, Copenhagen was the first
1911?
one. Yeah, and it's kind of had iterations. It had kind of different meanings and purposes, but that's when it kind of officially got recognised.
Shit, man. No, if you'd have made me guess, I'd have probably said the 90s.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I think in 96 it had a significant shift into like what we know it is today. Yeah, I think it was 1996. But I'm going to ask you some questions, right? Mm-hmm. And I want you to kind of think about them and answer them sort of honestly, right? When was the last time you were physically harassed by a member of the opposite sex just for walking home after a hard day at work?
Shit, man! I didn't know you didn't. I didn't know you was going to ask me that. No, never. Not walking home. No.
When were you last asked about your plans to have more children before you got a new job?
I got 6 kids, mate. No, yeah.
How often, when you're at a social engagement, are you continuously remarked about how pretty you look or what you're wearing?
Yeah, no.
I know you really wanted to make a joke there.
Oh yeah, no. But like,
yeah.
But, go on, keep going. Yeah.
How often do women come and just put their hands on your back or around your waist just as they're moving past in like a corridor or whatever?
Yeah, no, it doesn't happen.
Did you know in co-working, co-parenting relationships, women do 66% more of child care responsibilities?
Yeah.
Does that surprise you?
No.
Okay. For every £1 of venture capital in the UK last year, every £1, yeah? All female founder teams got less than 1 penny. Mixed gender teams got 10p in the pound. And all male founder teams, 89p.
Fuck, man. Wow.
So at that current rate, all female founder teams to get to just 10%, right, will take more than 25 years.
Wow.
Right. Based on today's activity and movement, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said it will take 3 centuries to get gender equality.
Wow.
Okay. Now here's an honest question. You may even want to close your eyes for this, right?
Okay.
When I mentioned all of these stats, and you imagined or pictured them as you were going through it, what did these women look like in your head? And I want you to answer honestly. What did you picture?
What, when you were just asking me the questions?
What kind of women? You can open your eyes now.
I guess it would have been different depending on the question that you asked.
Yeah, but generally speaking, I'm trying to kind of see if there's any sort of a bias in the way that you were thinking.
I'm struggling a little bit because I don't feel like I pictured.
So when I was going through it, I was just picturing like white, able-bodied women. Like it was just
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my answer was probably that I often picture Leah and my girls.
Yeah, like people
but in general, if you were to 100%. That's what I was thinking.
So
that is what I was thinking.
And I'm a person of color, right? I'm a brown guy, but when I was going through these stats and thinking about it, that's kind of just that's the bias that it took me there. So the reason I mention that is, imagine what all of those stats are like when you layer on intersectionality, right? If you're a woman of color, if you are LGBTQIA+, if you're disabled, if you're living in poverty, if you're under religious persecution. Like, it's bad, but then when you layer on intersectionality, it's crazy.
Yeah, man, yeah.
So I applaud the day, right? And it is important. And I also want to, lay bare to the fact that like we are so behind.
Yeah.
I just want to explore that a little bit today, really.
Yeah.
But I think what I really wanted to point out is, even when we hear such, or when we hear or read about, such an inequity, even that's got so much bias layered into it.
Yeah.
So this is not just one problem, but it's multiple problems to solve, right? So one of the things that I asked us to look at was, the UN's report on sort of the gender snapshot from last year.
Yeah.
Okay. And just read a few more stats, right? So 1 in every 10 women and girls in the world globally between 15 and 49 were subjected to sexual or physical violence by an intimate partner in the previous year.
Yeah, that's the one that I picked out, by the way.
Oh, okay.
When you sent me it, that was the one that I picked out.
Yeah, so I asked for our listeners, I said, have a look at these stats and pick out the one that really strikes you.
Yeah, that's the one that I picked out. Globally, more than one in every 10 women and girls aged 15 were subjected to sexual and or physical violence by their intimate partner in the previous year. I mean, I'd be interested as well to know what the data is on just that, that sexual harassment that you're talking about in like the workplace and stuff like that.
Yeah.
My eldest daughter's nearly 17. She left a job that she really liked because there was a couple of creepy old men there who wouldn't stop making and when I say creepy old men, they might have been sort of our age, right, by the way. But creepy old men to her.
A 17-year-old is
our age.
Right?
And she left the job. She quite liked the job, and she left it because the comments. And she told me what the comments are. And what's interesting is that there was part of my response, being completely honest here, part of my response was a little bit like, that's the fucking world we live in. So, in the end, she left her job, and good on her for doing that. But she shouldn't have. One, she shouldn't have had to leave it, and two, I was like, when I was being truthful with her, part of me was saying, you're probably going to find that wherever you work. Yeah, that's mental, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think the case in point by what we're talking about is that is what's going on, and it just keeps perpetuating. You know, like we're so far away from change, 3 centuries away from gender equality.
Yeah,
that's mad.
Yeah.
I picked one out. 1 in every 3 managers or supervisors is a woman, but at the current pace of change, parity will not be achieved for another 140 years. So equal.
Yeah.
So that's a long time of work. And actually, if you think about the evolution or the revolution in the workplace, I wonder, knowing that, you know, there's a lot of study or theory that AI is inherently biased anyway. It's built with bias in it.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's going to impact kind of, you know, work and jobs in the future as well.
Yeah, I'd imagine it will be. Yeah, I heard some people talking about the whole AI thing and like the people that are creating it.
Yeah,
are going to push their biases onto it.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, we live in a world where it's just a construct of structural kind of prejudice. So let me ask you. I've got some questions, right? So, why are we still so far behind? Why are we 300 years away from equity?
Well, look, I do think that one of the answers is that like it's very difficult not to live in your own bubble, in your own world, yeah? So I can very easily get comfortable in my own bias and start to... Let me just, like, take an example. So I can take my children. I'm now the father of 4 girls, yeah? So and 2 of the girls now are coming into their adulthood. One's 15, nearly 16. The other one's nearly 17, right? So, like, they are coming into their adulthood. So I'm starting to learn a lot of stuff. I'm being showed stuff through all of my children, particularly that are girls, that I wouldn't have recognized until I was in that experience.
You got a bit of fluff on your thing, yeah.
So there's that, right? But then when you put things plainly, like you just did when you asked me those questions, and I sort of made a joke about the first couple, you do start to go, shit, man, yeah, like I don't allow myself to think of that. The best example of this that I can use is something slightly different, but remember when you told me you don't go to England games?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, I can quite easily start to convince myself that, you know, I'm going to sound awful here, but I just want to be as honest as I can. I can start to try and convince myself, stop overreacting about stuff. Like, if you keep talking about it, then it is going to keep existing. And like, I can go down that narrative because I can stay in my own experience of my own life. I can start to think I wouldn't treat you any differently if you walked into a pub. Yeah, I can do all of that. Yeah. And then almost wash my hands of its existence. Now that happens almost subconsciously. So I'm not doing it like I can't be bothered to deal with what you experience with race, right? But and then when you go to me, yeah, I wouldn't go to an England game because of that. Then I go, fuck, man. Like, this is a real...
What is problem. What is it that tips you into that space based on what I say?
Because your experience becomes human.
Right.
Your experience becomes human. You're just my mate who, like, you know, if I wanted to go to an England game and I was like, Hass, I've got a ticket, and then you go, I can't come, mate, because I don't feel comfortable there, then all of a sudden it's like, fucking hell, you're my mate who don't feel comfortable there. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, like, just to bring it back to the question, why do you think we're so far behind? Because I think it gets very easy and comfortable to not address these things.
Yeah. You know? It's that, and also, it's not an accident that 89% of a pound gets put into all male founder teams. It's not an accident. No. Like, it's not like, oh, we didn't even know. It happens by design, but the design is not maybe explicit. No one's written it on paper saying we're going to put 89% of this pound into all male teams. It's just inherently wired, and the wiring passes down through structure and through generations. So, you know, toxic structures inherently just protect themselves, right? This is why the Tories have been in power for so long. You know, it's because anytime there's a threat there, it gets shifted, or the narrative gets shifted, or you get people to stop talking about that and get them to talk about something else.
Yeah.
And so can you imagine if how do you change and then it gets put on the victims or the the victims or the people who are suffering from the kind of the structural oppression. It gets put on them to try and fix it, right? So if you think about what happens with Black Lives Matter, it almost fell, the burden of responsibility fell on black people to fix it. Why should it?
Yeah.
Because like it's a microcosm of what needs to be done, right? So if you're getting less than a penny of that investment, you know the weight of pressure and law of averages is against you.
Yeah.
So that's why it's not changing, because no one really wants it to change.
Yeah. You know, this is slightly off topic of what you're talking about. I've been it's sort of because and I'm saying it because it's just come into my head. I've always struggled with the Women's Day conversation, like to know where I fit into it and to how I talk about it and stuff like that. And I do think that part of it is because I've always found women this is hard to say correctly, women way better, easier and more, I'm way more comfortable in the presence of women than I am men, because my life experiences have made men quite scary to me and stuff like that. Yeah. So I've always sort of sat in that other field. Do you know what I mean? So like I don't know. It makes me a little bit confused sometimes when I'm trying to, because I've lived more and I was raised by my mum, I guess, as well. So I've lived a bit more in like a women's world. Does that make, have I made any sense?
Well, it makes sense to me because obviously I was raised by my mum and my sister.
Because I would pick a woman any day over a bloke.
Yeah. For
most things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and I'm not saying that in a like a LinkedIn baity way of like, you know, women over. That's just my natural thing. My natural thing would be to pick a woman to do anything. Yeah.
In a superior way. Is that what you're saying?
No, not in a superior way. As in women are superior to me. Yeah. I just think they're probably better for any job.
Yeah. Well, they are. But the problem is we know that, and yet you can't fight against the structure. And that's what I'm really trying to point to is like, if we are 300 years away from gender parity and equality, that has to have you have to break the patterns. You have to like start really radically breaking the patterns to drive change. You're not going to incrementally get there is the problem. I think the other thing is, between us, we're a dad of 6 daughters.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about like, where do we stand? I think we have to start with our inner circle first, right?
Yeah.
Because I think you can get a bit caught up, particularly in the kind of work that we do and have, you know, almost feeling like we need to have a voice in this space. You can kind of get caught up in potentially getting a bit virtue signaling, right?
Yeah.
But actually, so what I always think is let's start with your immediate circle. Start with who's around you. How do you want to, you know, their whole lives are ahead of them, their whole futures. They're about to move out, certainly mine, and move out of kind of the innocent phase of their life and move into that space where your older daughters are, where they're having to experience this stuff where, you know, some of the stuff you're saying is, oh shit, that's a bit of the way of the world. And actually, why don't we try and figure out how do we kind of make that way of the world a bit different, right? We're not going to just be able to change it just by having a conversation on podcast. But if we don't at least do this, and then through the influence of our work and who we bring into the kind of work that we're doing, then what hope is there? Because you know, there are so many blokes who want to keep things as they are, or actually even take it back further the other way. So let me ask you, why are men so fragile about this topic of gender equality?
Look, the question, I want to firstly recognize that a lot of men really are fragile about it. When I first started doing this work, I got put in a few men's spaces, particularly on Facebook, and there's one in particular that I remember getting put in, right? And I'm going back like 4 or 5 years now, and it was called a men's space, and I'm involved in men's spaces now, right? I wasn't back then. I didn't really know anything about them. And there was a couple of 100 blokes in there, and they were it was full of fragile men that believed that women were trying to take over the world. None of them said that, right? And they were like talking as if they were there for men, but it was full of fragile men that were worried about women taking over the world.
Yeah.
Why do I think they're so fragile about it? I think there's a change that happens, or is it a change? When we're at school, right? When you're at school, and this is still true, I believe, today, we pathologize young boys and girls very, very differently, right? Boys are allowed to kick off in a classroom. Boy can throw a chair, gets put in isolation, is allowed back in the class. That's still pretty normal. Seen a boy can have a big angry outburst, right? And he gets taken out of the lesson and then he gets brought back in and it's relatively normal. Young girls don't get afforded the same thing. So a young girl can't, if a young girl threw a chair, she'd find herself in front of a doctor within about, she'd do it 3 times max. Yeah, because would be like, this girl must be, there's something, she's crazy. Yeah. So we literally, the way that we pathologize young kids, we allow boys to externalize their emotions, this is the complete opposite to what society tells us, by the way. But young boys are allowed to externalize their big emotions as long as it's in anger. They're not allowed to cry actually in senior school, but they can externalize their anger in a big way. Yeah. Young girls are actually taught to hold their emotions in, right? They're not allowed to be too emotional at all when they're younger. And I think this is why, by the way, men go on to be very angry at the world and women have a tendency to turn things in on themselves and think that they need to change themselves and that they're the problem. So we actually teach young children throughout school, unconsciously, that boys are the ones that are allowed to do what they want. They are the ones with the power, and any girls that do it, they must have something wrong with them. So then when I think young boys get into adulthood, and lots of young girls start to find their voices, but it's a new thing to boys. They're like, who the fuck? Like, you shouldn't be doing that. I'm allowed to do whatever I want, get angry, get da-da-da. But young girls are not.
Yeah.
So even sometimes, and that's, by the way, this is not me taking responsibility away from men and saying, well, they're just conditioned that way. But I do think that conditioning is massive. And it's a bigger thing than we think.
I think so. And it's and it is schooling, it's the cultural systems, right? But it's also familial systems as well, right? So in many cultures, boys are just elevated in terms of status within the family structure, right? I was just thinking even like something that I used to do when I would be sort of going off and traveling, right? I'd say to my son, I'd say, right, I'm off now. Can you look after the girls? Like he's a lovely boy, but it's almost I'm reinforcing that stereotype. Because what we do is we say boys, men have to be powerful, have to take responsibility, and so you almost pseudo push the kind of the ability to keep everything in order to them.
Yeah.
And actually, everyone has a responsibility to keep everyone safe, right? In those moments, if I'm worried, and I want them to look out for each other, they should all be looking out for each other, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so we just perpetuate these things. And of course, when you look at things like, toys and things like that, you just have that, the pink aisle and the blue aisle and things like that. So I think, from my point of view, I think a huge part of the problem, as we've discussed, is the fragility of men. And I talk about men plural, right? I'm not saying there are some good guys, there are some good blokes who are doing really meaningful work.
Yeah, but you're always talking in generalization when you're talking this way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And like another thing that I would say is that when you get to be a young man, so when I was 17, 18, 19, and you're in the pub, this is just the reality of it. All the blokes are full of shit. They're all lying. It's all this big bravado, right? They all act like they're in charge and da-da-da in their relationships I'm talking about, yeah? And it's a load of, it's a load of crap, yeah? Like, when I look at, my own relationship, the old saying that it would be like, where's the trousers in your relationship? Make no mistake about it. Leah is very much the leader in our relationship.
So
Leah is very
Leah's not the leader in our relationship.
I know what you're saying, yeah, but she's very much the leader in our relationship. She's the one who kind of holds things together. If there are power structures, which I'm sure there are within the family, she holds more power than I do within the house, right? And I'm quite comfortable with that in my life today, yeah. But I weren't when I was younger.
Yeah.
Like I felt, because what I learned from other men in the pub, I felt like, because all my relationships are a little bit like that, yeah, I felt like I needed to exert power back. So I felt like, because my wife was leading, or any partner that I had was leading, I felt like my duty is to exert power back. Let me give you a really quick example. I might have talked about this on here before, but we were on the plane once, and when we got to our seats, have I told you this before on here?
I think so, but tell it.
But we got to the seat where we were supposed to be sat, and what was going to happen is our 5-year-old at the time was going to be sat away from us. And I was like, well, this can't happen. And I don't know how to deal with it. I hate confrontation. And it's my wife that steps in. No, this is not happening. She calls someone over. Anyway, in the end, because this woman said she's not going to move, right? In the end, my wife gets it sorted. We're all sat next to each other. My first go-to after that is to start shaming myself. You know, like, you're the man. You should have sorted that. And then I realized that's why we're in this partnership, yeah? Because she brings that shit to the table. And what's wrong with her being the one that brings that stuff to the table in this partnership? Yeah. And it's the societal pressures and the belief that when a woman leads or holds a certain amount, a higher percentage of the power, there is still a conditioning in me that I have to override to say, no, that's all right, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even today, in my life today, my first thought is,
how am I being perceived?
It's not even, I don't even think it's about being perceived necessarily. It's just my thought. I think about myself, I should be fucking leading here. I need to get that back. And then you have to override it and go, nah, man. Like, that's all right.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's all right.
I think, just to kind of wrap up, some of this change is, so much of it is systemic and structural, and it is more than just, individuals doing work. It needs something bigger than that. And the more that men like us talk about it without sort of fear or reprisal, and open and lean into compassion and empathy and vulnerability, and actually show others that actually it's okay, and encourage more other men to break the norms, the societal norms, that's how we can start to make tiny, small, incremental difference. And no doubt, if we put some of this stuff on social, we're going to get some heat, being called snowflakes for talking about that stuff. And I say, bring it on.
Yeah. I'll fucking knock them out because I'm an hard nut bloke.
or you let the wife do it. Yeah.
My wife beat him up.
Brilliant. This is obviously, we're not going to solve these challenges, but I think we have to continue to talk about them on this platform and through our work that we do out in the world.
Definitely, man. Great conversation. I enjoyed that today. And yeah, see you in a couple of weeks.
Ciao.